So before we call the meeting to order, this is nice being here in our seats, huh? Let's just quickly run through what the agenda will be and make sure, Kim, that you're ready to go. We have some upgraded equipment from BevCam. Thank you, BevCam.
It works.
And it works even better. Perfect. So we have one resolution to do at the beginning of our meeting today. Then we'll accept minutes from previous meetings. We have some communications from His Honor the Mayor to take care of, some grants that we've received. And then we have some routine business that will go to committee. We'll take a break for some committee work, and then we'll come back to finish up the meeting. And so with that, Kim's ready in the booth. So we'll call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council. Ms. Kent, would you please call the roll?
Bowen?
Here.
Crowley? Feldman?
Here.
Houseman?
Here.
Rand? Rotundo?
Here.
St. Hilaire?
Here.
Sweeney?
Here.
And Flowers.
And I'm here. So I would ask that we would rise to pledge allegiance to the flag led by Councilor Rotundo, and please remain standing afterward for a moment of silence for our longtime and much loved Beverly Harbor Master, Dan McPherson, who passed away recently. So please remain standing after the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So as we are holding Dan McPherson's family in our hearts, just remembering that Dan was a long-serving, very faithful member of our Beverly law enforcement. He nurtured and mentored many other law enforcement professionals in our city. And he was also an avid soccer fan and a wonderful youth soccer coach in the city. So he will be missed by many. And so we want to hold his family in our hearts. And also I would ask that we hold Councilor Rand's family in our heart. Councilor Rand is not here tonight. Her father-in-law just passed away. And so just remembering Jonathan, her husband, and their whole family. And Councilor Crowley is also not here due to illness in his family. So please keep him in your heart as well. So with that, we have a resolution, Order 27. It's being submitted by Councilors Houseman, Feldman, and Rand, as well as the mayor. Councilors, do you want to go to the podium? And I would invite along with you if members of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee would like to join you, and Ms. Arena Keefe, who is our city's sustainability coordinator. Sure. Thank you.
Good evening, my fellow councilors and members of the public. This is a resolution in support of the Green Futures Act, House Bill 3292. Mayor Cahill and the City Council, joined with our Clean Energy Advisory Committee, who are here this evening, to support and urge the Massachusetts Legislature to take a crucial step on the path to a clean energy future by reporting the Green Future Act out of committee and to continue to deliberate upon its provisions and merits and pass this bill in a form that retains its essential provisions.
Whereas the City of Beverly is committed to exceeding Massachusetts' goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, and in 2011, Beverly sought and was designated a green community by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, starting a track record of city programs that demonstrate how local climate action can reduce carbon emissions that will protect our constituents. And
whereas, with the leadership of Mayor Cahill, the city has made significant progress against climate change, as witnessed most recently with the U.S. Conference of Mayors naming Mayor Cahill and the City of Beverly recipient of its 2021 Small Cities Mayor's Climate Protection Award, based in part on the city's advancements in electric vehicles and the Green Schools program. Mayor Cahill's leadership as a member of the steering committee of the U.S. Conference of Mayors demonstrates how elected municipal officials can make a difference to create a clean energy future. And
And whereas in 2017, the Beverly City Council unanimously passed a resolution entitled Pathways to Municipal Clean Energy, wherein the council resolved, quote, that the City of Beverly will endeavor to take actions to promote clean energy and reduce reliance on fossil fuel. And
whereas in 2020, the Beverly City Council unanimously passed a resolution in support of the Future Act, House Resolution 2849, an act for utility transition to using renewable energy. And
whereas in 2020, the Beverly City Council, Mayor Cahill, and the Clean Energy Advisory Committee unanimously passed a resolution in support of 100% clean energy, wherein the city resolved, among other goals, to electrify the municipal vehicle fleet, establish a green municipal aggregation program, and urge the Massachusetts legislature to work with all elected and appointed officials toward equitable and affordable clean energy solutions. And
whereas the Green Future Act will provide funding for climate change solutions like the electrification of municipal vehicle fleets like our school buses, community microgrids, nature-based climate solutions, local energy efficiency, and more. And
whereas the Green Future Act will provide a dedicated annual funding formula for every city and town in Massachusetts, providing communities on average of $3.4 million in new green funding by 2030. And
whereas the Green Future Act will provide local control over green infrastructure spending decisions, with communities given discretion over how and where to spend funds. And
whereas the Green Future Act will, 1, create tens of thousands of new local jobs and contributes to a just transition. 2, reduce local CO2 emissions and air pollution by holding polluters accountable. 3, help residents and businesses reduce energy bills. And 4, provide predictability and new resources for small businesses.
now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Beverly in the County of Essex, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and joining with municipalities from across the Commonwealth, we express our support of the passage of the Green Future Act, House Bill 3292, an act achieving a green future with infrastructure and workforce investments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, councilors. Would you like to add any other remarks, or Ms. Keith?
Yes, I believe Ms. Keefe is going to present on behalf of the mayor and then pass the baton to some members of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee.
That's right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Flowers. Thank you to the councilors that have co-sponsored this resolution in support of the Green Future Act. And thank you also to the councilors that are considering this resolution for the first time. So hello to those who don't yet know me, Irina Keefe, Sustainability Director with the city. And I'm here tonight representing Mayor Cahill's office to express our support for the Green Future Act. So to be as succinct as possible, the time is really of the essence to drastically cut our carbon emissions. This bill came about originally because the state didn't have the funding it needs to meet the goals that are laid out in the Next Generation Roadmap law that was signed by Governor Baker last April. So in Beverly, we've relied on state programs like the Green Communities Program to enable important city work that otherwise would be challenging to finance, like all of the energy upgrades at our schools in the past decade. So we need a lot more quickly to set up the infrastructure needed to transition away from fossil fuels entirely. In Resilient Together, our joint climate action and resilience plan with the city of Salem sets goals. It sort of joins the state in setting goals to have our carbon emissions by 2030. And this near deadline of 2030 is more important than the goal that you commonly hear of, which is net zero energy by 2050, as it determines whether we can avoid these kind of critical ecological tipping points. So the administration views the Green Future Act as a meaningful way to mobilize funds and enable cities and other practitioners in the state to do more to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. It's not a perfect bill, we recognize, but we support its advancement through committee at this stage. After his decade in the State House, Mayor Cahill is now comfortable with this bill because he recognizes the significant opportunity for amendments once the bill comes out of committee. So he noted that bills often come out of committee as drafts, or works in progress. So once passed through the stage, the House and the Senate will have the time and the energy to be able to prioritize the refinement of this draft over the next several months. So Mayor Cahill plans to advocate with other mayors, with legislative delegations to improve this bill, and invites any of the council members to join in doing so. So in hoping that a strong final bill will win the support enough to be passed into law. So we are very fortunate to have a new informal legislative subcommittee within the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, some of whom are here with us tonight, that have been working on researching and vetting and prioritizing the bills that should be elevated to the attention of the administration and of the council. So this resolution, as you know, is co-sponsored. So I just wanted to invite Julia Long, the chair of our Clean Energy Advisory Committee, to say a couple of words. And then those who are very well researched in the details are also available to help field questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. Really, I'm not here to add any more than what has already been stated in the resolution and the follow-up by Irina. That was wonderful. I'm here to introduce myself. I'm Julia Long. I'm the chair of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee. And I welcome the new councilors on City Council, and I am so grateful to all the work that's been put in by the entire council today and in the past toward clean energy and sustainability. Just quickly about me, in addition to being the chair, I've been a Beverly resident my entire life. I'm raising my two children, currently ages 12 and 15, here. And I find Beverly, there's no other place like it in the world. So I'm really proud of where we live and the bold, assertive moves that we've made in history and recent history and past history toward making the future a better place. So unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures. We need to look at the best options we have in front of us and make the best decisions we can. And as a mother and a member of the Clean Energy group, I just feel like we have what we need right in front of us. So I'd like to have the committee chair or the subcommittee, Fred Hops, representing the subcommittee, the legislative subcommittee from the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, come up and say a few words. Fred is the former chair of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee and just a power horse, along with Amy Henderson and Jordan Stutt, who have done wonderful work to make this resolution something that we can all kind of understand better. Fred?
Thank you very much, Ms. Long.
Thank you, Council President Flowers and Council, for letting me speak. I just want to make an observation about this bill. And when I founded the Clean Energy Advisory Committee back in 2009 with Maureen Trubateris, the Ward 1 rep, and Pat Grimes, there were different times, and the council wasn't considering so much issues outside the town. They were thinking of roads and schools, and of course, it's very important. But now, with the Green Communities Act, we were able to get $2 million from the state to do things like upgrading the lights to LEDs. And if we are going to meet our climate goals in this city, we can't do it on our own. Despite the work that Irina and the mayor have been doing, and the council and individual volunteers, we need to have a state effort. And I'm strongly urging the council to vote in favor of the Green Futures Act. And in Salem, they just voted for a similar act. And if we are going to be resilient together with our sister city, I urge the council to vote in support of the Green Futures Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hops. And thank you to all the members of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee for your service to our community. It's an important volunteer role, all our boards and commissions and committees, and so thank you all for the work that you do on a regular basis. With that, so that we can have questions or discussion as needed, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I'd like to make a motion to approve for purposes of discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. So is there further discussion? Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions. I think maybe I'm just getting hung up in the wording, but the first, from my understanding, is we're looking to move it out of committee, which is right now in the Utilities Committee, but at the end, it's looking to support the passage of the Greens Act currently. So, to me, I have reservations reading the Greens Act back in September and speaking to a gentleman from one of the committees. And I think he left me with more questions than answers back then. So I'm trying to quite understand this resolution right now. Originally I thought it was to push it out of, to support pushing it out of subcommittee in the State House, but now it seems as if we're looking to support the Greens Act, Greens Future Act. So that's kind of a question I have right now.
Councilor Hudson.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for those comments, Councilor Rotundo. Yeah, I'd like to underscore perhaps the words of the mayor that Arena gave to us, which is also sort of the way that I really look at this resolution. It is it's a non-binding resolution, as I look at it, in support of asking the legislature to really continue to the work on this bill. For anyone who's familiar with state legislation, they know it's a sausage-making process that will result almost certainly in amendments made to this bill once it's reported out of committee, if it's reported out of committee. And so for me, this is, if you will, a letter of intent. It's not a contract with specific provisions, because while I support the intent of the act, I have no doubt that it will look different when it actually goes through the legislative process. What's important to me for this resolution is that the council request and urge the legislature to do just that. Report it out, lend our voice to reporting it out of committee so that the legislature can do its work. I spoke with both Representative Carosella and our Senator Joan Lovely this weekend about it, and told them essentially what was going on. We talked about the specifics of the bill a little bit, and about, in general, what city councils can do or not do. I would say that in the past, when I first started out as a councilor, I probably would have thought that this was not council work. Over the course of a decade now in the council, I've changed my notions about what really belongs before the council in terms of actions that we can take. If a piece of legislation at the state can have a direct impact on our community, then to me that is tantamount to a local provision, in the sense that it would affect my constituents one way or another. So I would say that Representative Paracella was not entirely familiar with this, and for that matter, neither was Senator Lovely. Senator Paracella, as he spoke to me, did underscore that for this particular bill, it was important, he thought, for it probably to report out of committee so the work could continue on this particular bill. Senator Lovely spoke more directly to the role of a city council as advocates, as you may know, probably. Excuse me. She was a city councilor in Salem and president of the city council in Salem for some time. And she said advocacy for the city councils, from her point of view, is very welcome, and she thinks it's important work. So for me, I feel very comfortable, as the council has done in the past, and unanimously, supporting legislation that helps urge the legislature to continue its work. So I think I'll leave it at that. Excuse me, leave it at that. I will underscore something that Mr. Hopp says, which is that the city of Salem's City Council voted 11-0 to pass a resolution in support of this act, and I hope that the council can continue its role as it has done in the past, even if you don't necessarily agree with or be familiar with the specifics of the bill. Vote in favor of the resolution because it's a non-binding sort of letter of intent, if you will, or advocacy to ask the legislature to report it out of committee. They're going to do the important work at the State House level that's going to determine what the ultimate provisions are going to be. For us, and for me at least, this is more about urging them to do that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hostman. Councilor St. Hilaire.
First, if I could get a mic check, Kim. Is this working?
Oh, it's working now.
I'm getting feedback, so.
Was this working?
Try now? Yep. Is that better? Yep. Okay. Thank you. So I've been thinking a lot about this resolution since we received it, I think, on Friday, and done our research and have some comments that I think encapsulate my thoughts about this. And, I'd like to share some of that with the council. They'll keep it brief. First, I'm proud of the work that Beverly has done on addressing climate change. We've been a leader on this issue. Mayor Cahill has made this a signature issue of his administration, and I applaud him for that. I applaud him for hiring a full-time sustainability director, Irina Keefe, and for his efforts to advance the city's use of electric vehicles, and for the success of the Green Schools program, which were both recently recognized by the United States Conference of Mayors, and naming Mayor Cahill as the recipient of the Small Cities Mayor's Climate Protection Award. I think that is really exciting stuff for Beverly. But in reviewing all this information, clearly there's a lot to like, right? The ambition of it, the fact that it will provide funding to local cities and towns. There's a lot to be excited about there. But with that said, in researching the state legislative website this weekend, there were 7,000 bills filed in the state legislature this term. And I think considering state legislative matters can be a complicated issue, right? How exactly does this impact Beverly? How does the funding formula proposed in this bill, is it fair to Beverly residents? The infrastructure projects this legislation is proposing, how is that going to be prioritized? How does Beverly have a seat at the table? It talks about the TCI, Transportation and Climate Initiative, and it talks about that going into effect in 23. Massachusetts just pulled out of that in November. How does that decision impact this bill and other legislation? And so, I obviously have a lot of questions. And the good news for me and for Beverly is that we actually have two full-time state legislators, a full-time state representative in Jerry Paracella, a full-time state senator in Joan Lovely. And it's their full-time job to consider the impact of state legislation on our city and our residents. Rep. Paracella and Senator Lovely are both very experienced, both serve in leadership roles in their chambers, and they both have full-time staff dedicated to tracking and reviewing legislation and negotiating with their colleagues to make sure that Beverly's interests are well served. And, again, we've had a few days to consider this resolution. I don't think it's a wise practice for us as local officials to rush to endorse state legislation in a vacuum. Endorsing this bill could potentially, for all we know, undercut the work of our elected state legislators, who are far more familiar with the discussions happening on Beacon Hill, and they may very well right now be working to amend this legislation, for all I know, to better improve it for Beverly. To be clear, I'm not saying we shouldn't be involved in climate change. I think we need to be, obviously. But what I'm suggesting is let's focus our roles as local officials. There's lots of initiatives and policies and ordinances that we can enact right here in Beverly. And let's do our jobs as local officials, and let's leave the consideration of state legislation to our elected state rep and our elected state senator. That is their job. And so I would encourage my colleagues to vote no on this. I think it's a slippery slope to be picking one bill out of 7,000 and saying we endorse this without knowing any of the details. And, I guess that's my thoughts on this, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Councilor St. Hilaire. Councilor Feldman.
Yes, thank you. And Councilor Sandler, I appreciate those, your remarks, and I too have originally, had to review this at length, and I in some ways view this as a resolution of this nature as supporting our state senator and Representative Paracella in progressing, in moving that ball forward, in doing that work to advocate on behalf of the city of Beverly. And this resolution is really just lending our support for them to advocate on our behalf and to go after that funding that will benefit the city of Beverly and all of its constituents, because we aren't supporting per se the resolution word for word as it is. It's with the acknowledgement of work to be done on it. It's a resolution in support of further work on this and push it to do something rather than to do nothing. Because at this moment in time, it is not progressing and it is not getting worked on. So this resolution is more moving the ball forward to keep it going in the direction that we need it to. And I think that being ahead of that and being an advocate for that will show Beverly's commitment to implementing the parts of this bill that hopefully do come to pass down the line that will benefit the city to a greater degree. So that is my feelings on how we as a council play a role in the legislative process in terms of supporting the state level legislation.
Thank you, Councillor Feldman. I saw Councillor Bowen, and then Councillor St. Hilaire will come back to you.
Great, thank you. I think this is a really interesting resolution for this reason, that there's both the content that we're talking about around climate action and what that looks like for the city of Beverly and who helps us with that and who we cooperate with on that. But there's also the process piece of us as a city council voting on resolutions that are not the same as voting on, making decisions about city ordinances, but are really a way to express our opinion in a more formal and collective way. And so I hear the concern about taking up resolutions that aren't related to local decisions, and I want to be clear that as these resolutions come up, I'm conscious of that. I'm going to be thinking through that and really evaluating resolutions based on how much of a local opinion is there to express on this issue, how impacted are we as a city, how important is this issue to city residents, and how important is expressing our city government view about the issue to informing the process at another level. So in this case, I think the bill itself, the process, is at a stage where it is very important for our state legislators and those we haven't elected who are from other parts of the state to hear whether this bill matters to us or not, and whether the core principles in it align with what we're looking to do as a city. And I think that is fair for us to take up and fair to for us to express our opinion on the content of. And for me, the content, as we've heard from our Clean Energy Advisory Committee and the mayor's office, is very aligned with what our plans as a city are, and that expressing to state legislators, yes, we are looking to see more revenue come to local control and have the ability to follow some of the principles that are outlined that outline the structure of the bill as it stands now. I take the point that it, will go through more negotiations if it gets out of committee, but that we want to see those things happen because they will make our jobs as city councilors in the mayor's office and as a city easier to, achieve our goals. So I support that concept, and I support certainly the work that's happening at the state level. I like the structure of this bill. So on a content side, I'm supportive. I think it really does reflect a lot of what I've heard from neighborhoods across the city about what we want to be doing and that we want as a city and with our neighbors to control those decisions. And I think process-wise, the way the resolution is structured allows us to express that opinion at a stage when it may matter.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor St. Hilaire, and then Councillor Rotundo will come back over to you.
I think I'm good. Thanks. So I just wanted to respond to Councillor Feldman's comments about, us supporting this resolution is actually supporting Rep. Paracella and Senator Lovely. I mean, one thing I did note in reviewing this legislation is neither Rep. Paracella nor Senator Lovely are among the 70 co-sponsors of this bill. I also note that neither Senator Lovely or Rep. Paracella nor their staff are here tonight to support this effort. I also question the comments about this being a critical stage and this being stalled.
none of us are plugged into what's happening on Beacon Hill that really know what's happening. They are. And so again, I just really think this is a bad precedent to be setting. I don't think it's wise for us to be undercutting their work. They were elected to represent Beverly's residents just as we are at the state level, and I trust that they're doing good work to support our residents and move climate change forward just as we are at the local level. And I would really just appreciate, letting them do their jobs.
Thank you. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, I'm just going to go back to the reading of the resolution. The first paragraph does in fact state we're looking to move it out of committee, but the last paragraph clearly states that we're looking to express the support of the Green Futures Act, so they're contradictory to each other. So that's where I have the reservations. With the whole idea of it being moved out of committee, I don't have a problem with that because, yes, I know there's work to be done to it. But at the last paragraph, it sounds as if we're supporting the act, and I don't want to support something I don't even know what's even in front of me yet. So that's where I'm having, I guess the problem is one paragraph says one thing, and then the last paragraph says a total different thing. So, like I said, I'm not against what we're needing to do. It's just a matter of how we're approaching it right now.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. My sentiments reflect much of what Councilor St. Hilaire has expressed. I do want to speak to the piece about advocacy. I think the work of your committee is incredibly important, especially when we think about the progress that the city has made with the efforts that have largely been driven by Mayor Cahill, but really have been a collaborative work of the entire city in moving Beverly towards some of the goals that we have set. And I think, so Mr. Hobbs, to your point about this being bigger than the city's efforts alone can tackle, I agree with that, and I think the advocacy piece is incredibly important. I would encourage your committee as well as members of this council to continue those advocacy efforts by contacting our state representative or state senator. I think a lot of weight can be had from formal communications to their office and having city councilors and other members of the community sign off on those. So I don't want to discredit the importance of advocacy. I do have concerns about us voting on resolutions regarding pending state action, and I think for many of the reasons that Councilor Rotundo illustrated, there are just a lot of questions still that remain with this bill because of where it is in the legislative process. It's still in committee. I, would love to see continued action. I think we as a state took a great step in March of 2021 with the Roadmaps Act that was signed into law by Governor Baker. I do believe that there's more action that needs to take place at the state level. My concern is just after reading, the 29-page bill, I think there's a lot of good in here, specifically with regards to local climate crisis councils. I really am a big fan of the idea that local control is the best way to address these issues, as they do tend to vary from community to community. So I do believe that's a positive step that the state should be looking at. I think we do need to ensure that communities have the funding required to tackle climate change locally, and so that's obviously a big question of where does this funding come from, what next steps are necessary, and my concern, as Councilor St. Hilaire flagged, is just that without TCI, with the regional compact that many states originally expressed support in and ultimately backed off of, just the financing piece still remains unclear. I hope the state legislature continues to take action on this bill. I am just concerned that we endorse a piece of legislation that appears to me to be incomplete, but even larger than that, I have concerns with the city council, given all that we have to tackle locally, that we expand our scope too broad to encompass state issues that I believe the advocacy work is important, but as Councilor St. Hilaire said, can best be addressed by the legislators that we elect to represent us on Beacon Hill.
Thank you, Councilor Sweeney. Councilors, are there any further questions or comments? Councilor Houseman.
Yeah, I just want to address a couple of the questions. First of all, I really respect the differences of opinion that are evident in the council, because I think it really shows a great deal of thoughtfulness. And I know that part of facing the challenges of our nation, as well as down at the local level, being able to listen to each other, understand each other's concerns with respect, even if we disagree, is a very important thing. And I also having, a number of years tenure on the council, understand and respect the process of learning the sort of culture, if you will, of the council. I know that when I first started as a counselor, I was more in the camp of the counselors on the other side of me, Counselor St. Hilaire and Counselor Sweeney, about we should stick to our knitting. What really changed me were occasions where it became very clear to me that a constituent of mine was going to be directly affected by something that was legislatively up at the State House. And that connection for me between my specific constituent and a bill that was before the legislature really brought me to a place where I understood for myself that it is part of our role as a council to advocate for our constituents, whether it's in the mayor's office, whether it's to our fellow councilors, or whether it's to our state legislators. So, as Senator Lovely said to me, advocacy is important, and she wants to hear, as she expressed it, she wants to hear from the council about what we think. And so, we're sorting out tonight what we think, right? But at least in terms of the process point, Senator Lovely's been, has been around the park. She's been involved in this arena, both as a city councilor and as a state senator now for quite a number of years. And at least for her anyway, she was clear with me that she values the kind of input that we as a council would give if we were to take up matters like this, to express an opinion and advocate one way or another. At least specifically, yeah, they're not co-sponsors on these bills. As Councilor St. Hilaire said, there are 7,000. I think Senator Lovely said 6,000. But when you have that number of bills, I wouldn't expect my representative or my senator to be co-sponsors of every bill that comes around. So part of my job, I feel, as a counselor, is to direct their attention and advocate, just as Senator Lovely was sort of at least encouraging to me anyway, to advocate as a constituent, in this case as a constituent body, to take an advocacy role in expressing a point of view. And I guess there's only one other thing I would say, and that is Massachusetts is a small state, and on our own we are not going to noticeably move the needle on changing climate based upon the number of solar panels we put up here. It's all important that we do that and that we all play the role that we can to the maximum to do that. But the one thing that's really different about Massachusetts, because of its small geographic size, in my opinion really, is the ability to show leadership as to what can happen. So we may not have the kind of impact that a Texas or a California or some of the larger Midwestern states might have in terms of geography, but we have talent here in this state that comes from our universities, that comes from the most important form of capital, that's human capital, that shows what we can accomplish if we show leadership and set our mind to taking that leadership and implementing innovative solutions to the challenges that we have. I think everyone in this room appreciates how crucial we have, how crucial a challenge we face from a time point of view in terms of what the science tells us about how quickly we have to move to enact responses to fight climate change. Do I know that this one bill is the answer? I don't. I certainly don't. But I do know that in trying to encourage our state legislature to do the hard work, this is an important indicator for me as a city councilor, and I hope for my colleagues, to say, we support you. We want you to know what our voice is, And we'd like you to do the hard work that's involved in showing leadership to figure out what the solutions are. It may be that the specific provisions of this bill are not going to ultimately survive at the State House, but if they report this out of committee and continue the hard work to craft the solutions, to use the leadership that Massachusetts talent can provide, then we can be an example as a small state to what's possible to the other states in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Houseman. Councillor St. Hilaire. That was very dramatic, Councillor St. Hilaire.
Sorry, this is a new trick.
Like Darth Vader.
Help me, Kim. So I'll just be brief. I just wanted to echo Councillor Houseman's comments about the healthy discussion. I think, clearly we've got a group of engaged councilors, and despite the fact that we have differences of opinion on approach, one thing that I'm encouraged about is I think all of us agree that climate change is an important issue, and I think we're all committed to working on the issue here in Beverly, and I look forward to working with all of you on issues moving forward. And despite our disagreement about the resolution, I think there's good work that we can all do together on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Hilaire. Councillor Feldman, and then Councillor Sweeney, please.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on in terms of the slippery slope, and I, as a city councilor, have always approached each resolution and item completely neutral to make all my decisions very independently. Sorry. And I have to say, a lot of the time, things of this nature, especially at the state level, fall into the not under our purview bucket, which I think will happen a lot. But there are certain items that I am willing to support in terms of putting my neck out a little more, because they are just so important, I think, to our state, our city, our community, and the world in terms of using whatever small piece of power that we have to be able to advocate for something and to look at items such as this outside of our job, not our job, and to actually really look at what we're talking about and what we're advocating for on a case-by-case basis. Because there are many of those 7,000 resolutions or 7,000 bills that I probably would not necessarily think we should advance or move the ball forward in terms of discussion, but it is because there are very few issues that I think we need to, I feel personally responsible for using every ounce of my authority to be able to support something like this as a mother, as a citizen, as a counselor. So that's kind of my take on that slippery slope and what falls under the purview of the council, because I don't think we can just always say, well, it's kind of not my job, which I get that a lot is not our job, but I like to try and make more work for myself. That's why I ran for office, so.
Thank you, Councillor Feldman. Councillor Sweeney, and then we'll go to Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to make note, and this may seem like a discussion of semantics, but I believe the distinction is important here. First, I want to emphasize much of what Councilors Houseman and Feldman said about the importance of this work. I do believe that climate change is something that we are all acutely aware of here in Beverly, especially as a coastal community, is a very real threat that we need to tackle going forward. And I also believe that advocacy work is important, and all of us are active in our city for that reason. We're all advocates. The specific causes that we may be most passionate about may vary, but at the end of the day, we're advocates for the city of Beverly, and that's why we get involved. I think that work is very important, and I don't think that anybody should feel as though just because they are a city councilor or a member of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee or a role that is locally focused, that means they should not chime in on state-related matters or even federal matters. I don't believe that's the case at all. But what I do think is very important is that feel free to advocate and do so with the weight of your official title if you so choose. I think there can really be an impact had at the state level if, an entire Clean Energy Advisory Committee and a handful of members of the city council, if not the whole council, sign on to a letter to our elected representatives supporting specific provisions of this bill, which, as I mentioned, I do have some concerns about the financing, but I think there's a lot of good. And if we picked out certain provisions, I would be more than willing to review them and potentially sign on to such a letter. I think that's an appropriate avenue for such advocacy work from city officials on state matters. My concern is just with a resolution before the city council, I think we really should make sure that we are keeping our focus on the local work in front of us. And so if a resolution is to come before the council, I do believe that it should be impacting directly groups in our community or work of the city in our formal city business. I think we have so much that we have been elected to tackle as city councilors. I think it's important to the city and to the constituents that we've been elected that, we do take time for advocacy, and I believe that's important, but then when it comes to the work of the city council, we are focused on what we can control here in Beverly. And so, again, I say this to emphasize, I believe the advocacy work is important. I believe that climate change is a very crucial issue in Beverly that we need to act on, but in this specific instance, while I would potentially sign on to a letter to Representative Paracella and Senator Lovely, I don't feel comfortable voting in favor of a resolution on a piece of state legislation that's pending, that still has a lot to be worked out. I just believe that that's what we have elected Representative Paracella and Senator Lovely to do on our behalf. And while we can reach out to them to advocate for our interests, I think ultimately the sausage-making process, as Councilor Houseman referred to it, really should be undertaken by our elected representatives.
Thank you, Councilor Sweeney. Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. Just a quick addition before we close out discussion. Wanted to just say, for me, I am comfortable with the resolution as written and the work behind it, but I would also be comfortable with a slightly different version that emphasized the core principles that we're most interested in seeing come out of this work and urging action to more of what's focused in the first paragraph than the last, if that would make others more comfortable. I also recognize that this is proposed as a joint statement with the mayor, with the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, so obviously can't speak for them, but just wanted to say, if that's something that others would be more comfortable with, rather than just a, yes, no on as written, that's something I'd be open to, so.
Thank you, Councilor Bowen. Councilor Houseman.
Yeah, I just want to respond directly to Councilor Bowen. It wouldn't be the first time that we've revised a resolution to try to come up with language that would get broader support. So I would certainly be willing. I mean, part of what's relevant to that for this resolution is the timing of when this comes out of committee. And so the resolution is really geared towards trying to advocate before that date happens. But whether we could craft a resolution that would have broader support before or after that date, between now and our next meeting, I would certainly be open to trying to do that. I think that would be a good sign for how this council could work together moving forward on coming to consensus and getting the work done. So if there's a way, subject to the constraints of the open meeting law, that it would be possible to come up with something like that, I'd certainly be willing to lend my time and effort to doing that.
Adam,
Thank you, Councilor Houseman. Councilor Rotundo.
can we put this resolution on hold then to the next meeting? Is that possible?
Yes, actually, so any councilor could exercise their privilege to put a hold on this for 2 weeks, if you so chose.
So may I motion to put this resolution on hold for Councilor?
So procedurally, I guess there's a motion on the, actually, there's not a motion on the floor. So a hold is not something that is subject to a motion. So it is a action that this is for the new councilors and the returning counselors. It is a procedural step that is exercised quite rarely. In my 10 years, I think it's only been done 3 or 4 times, something like that. But that gives you an order of magnitude, right? But it is the prerogative of, if you look in your in the charter and our rules, to put a hold on a matter, and that just stops action on it until the next meeting. There's a whole set of procedures around how it moves forward after that. So it's not a motion; it's a statement. Having said that, personally, I would prefer, so just procedurally, because I'm not trying to interrupt Councilor Rotendo.
I appreciate that.
So with his indulgence, I think I would rather actually bring it to a vote, and once that is done, we can still go back and craft another resolution or a change to this resolution that might get broader support. So I guess I'm starting to think through that because it does involve other parties as well. It involves the mayor's office. It involves the Clean Energy Advisory Committee. So I don't really know what they might think about which way they would rather go. And I guess maybe I'd like to hear from them on that score if Councilor Rotundo is willing to do that before deciding.
Yes.
Mr. Hops or Ms. Keefe, or any of the other members of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, if you'd like to. Yes, please, at the podium, if you would. For your fans on BevCam, Mr. Hops.
Okay, thank you. I echo what Councilor Houseman said, and to have this deliberate conversation, it's what needs to happen in America. And it's happening here in this room, and that's excellent. I stand here right now as a matter of urgency because it's February 2nd that it gets voted at a TUE. I don't know how long this process takes, but we need to make a stand now as advocates on the council to let the state legislature know that this is something that directly benefits our town. If you decide to deliberate this over the next couple of weeks and we don't make that statement by February 2nd, it's not a wasted process because it's a good conversation to have. But it has more strength if we do it before February 2nd and join the city of Salem as our resilient together sister in arms to get the state to do meaningful legislation so that we can be the leader in this nation on clean energy. And the time is now. So thank you for letting me speak, and thank you for this great conversation.
Ms. Keefe, I don't know if you would like to, okay. All right. So Councilors Houseman and Rotundo, I know, Councilor Rotundo, you were making a decision
Yeah, I
about...
guess now I have another question on top of it. So
Councilor
my
Rotundo.
understanding is it's going to be voted out of TUE whether we send this resolution through or not. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to see the validity of it. You know, if we hold it, if we wordsmith it differently, whatever the case may be, it seems as, according to what Mr. Hoff was saying, is it's going to be voted out regardless, February 2nd. That's what I'm understanding from that right now, so I'm not sure.
I didn't hear the...
The question is, it sounds as if, from Mr. Hoff's, is that this is being voted, so the time is of the essence because it's being voted out at TUE on February 2nd.
Yes, I think that's right, and it sounds like you would like us to move to a vote.
Right, wasn't that
The vote will fall where the vote does. To my mind, if we do that, that does not preclude future action by this council, regardless of how it falls in terms of the committee's the committee work at the state level,
right.
at the state level. It may be, and we don't know, but it may be that we could still come up with another resolution that might be similar in nature, that might be after the fact, but that would still make an advocacy statement by this council that could form the framework of how we work together on resolutions going forward. So I guess I do see some value in bringing it to a vote, because that is the request of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, that we act in a timely manner. The votes will fall where the votes do. But I, in some respects, even if the vote does not do well, I'm encouraged by the conversation we're having, and the interest expressed in trying to come to some kind of consensus around language that we could live with on the subject of climate change. I don't know what that looks like. You know, we're still trying to figure this out right now. But my sense is they would like us to take a vote.
So Councillor Houseman, would you like to call the question?
Well, there are two councillors who would like to
Okay.
speak, and then maybe at some point we need to do that.
I think I said, I did see Councillor Bowen. I'm sorry, Councillor St. Hilaire. I did see Councillor Bowen to my left, and then we'll go to you, Councillor St. Hilaire. Thank you.
But mine's just a quick comment, which is, so my understanding is that there will be a vote on the second, one way or the other. And so to Councillor Houseman's point, if we want to express an opinion collectively with the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, we don't really have time to go back and forth on language on that particular piece. But then if it is voted favorably out of committee on the second, then there would be further opportunities.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor St. Hilaire.
Yeah, I just wanted to, this question about what's happening on Beacon Hill sort of underscores my point, which is none of us really knows what's happening, right? But I bet there are two people that do know. It's Senator Paracella and Senator Lovely and Representative Paracella. And, again, just to me, none of us know what's happening on Beacon Hill. We're not following this closely enough. I'd say let's just let this go.
All right, thank you, councillors, and thank you to Ms. Keefe and the members of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee for this. I would echo the very robust and very thoughtful conversation. And so with that, there is a motion and a second on this resolution, and so I will bring it to a vote. So all those in favor of Order 27, the resolution for the Green Future Act, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. It passes 4-3. Thank you very much. So thank you again, Councilors Feldman and Houseman, Councilor Rand, who's not here, Mayor Cahill, represented by Ms. Keefe, and to the members of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, thank you for your work in our city and on behalf of our city. With that, I would entertain a motion just for a 2-minute recess.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're in recess. Your mask is like...
I've already lost, I know.
The minutes. All right, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for that good first discussion. That was a nice start to our time together as a council, so thank you. So with that, we're going to accept minutes of our previous meetings, and I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of 3 of our recent meetings: the regular city council meeting held on December 20th, 2021, special city council meeting held on December 29th, 2021, and regular city council meeting on January 3rd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, passes 7-0. Thank you. Let's go to communications from His Honor the Mayor, Ms. Kent.
Order number 15, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $20,939.99 FY22 Firefighter Safety Equipment Grant from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to purchase structural turnout gear and new dryer for the Beverly Fire Department. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval for any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant at your upcoming meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kent, and we'll refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property, but I do want to note that our Director of Grants, Catherine Barrett, is here with us tonight, as well as our Fire Chief, Peter O'Connor. Thank you both for being here. Do either one of you want to say anything about this grant for the council's edification? Thank you, Chief.
If you have any questions about that, the money's going to buy us 6 sets of turnout gear. Our turnout gear typically lasts, we try to get it to last 10 years, but everybody gets 2 sets, and we actually go through it fairly quickly, so this will be a good head start to get 6 new sets of gear. The dryer that we'll be replacing is at the headquarters station. We do have a gear dryer that's about 22 years old, and we actually moved it to the basement a few years ago because the neighbors would complain in the summertime, and it was so loud. So it'll be really good to have that one replaced. That'll put new washers and dryers in all 3 stations.
Great, thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Councilor Husband.
Yeah, I just, while the chief is still up there, I had the occasion between Christmas and New Year's to tour both the new police station and sit down with the chief and get I think we spent 3 hours at Central Fire Station, including down in the basement and checking out this dryer and so forth. And there's no question that the fire department really needs our support and really needs new equipment. Down at the police station, and the police are tucked away in good quarters. We really need to pay attention to the needs of the infrastructure needs of the fire department. I'm sure this will be a welcome improvement to their equipment.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
And thank you, as always, to you and your team for all the good work that you do in our community also, Chief O'Connor. Thank you. Much appreciated. Ms. Kent.
Order number 16, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $163,964 grant, FY22-911 Supportive and Incentive Grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Office of Grants and Research. This grant funding will be used by the Beverly Police Department to assist public safety dispatch services in providing enhanced 911 service. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by taking action on this matter at your upcoming meeting on January 18th. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. We'll refer that to Finance and Property. Ms. Barrett, anything you'd like to say on that one?
Yeah, I would just like to say a couple things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Barrett, Director of Grants. I just wanted to say a couple words on order number 16 and 17. They're the 2 911 grants that the Beverly Police Department receives. I'd like to recognize Sergeant Tony DeRuza for all his efforts on both of these annual grants. They were due December 30th, so a tricky time between Christmas and New Year's, and he did a fantastic job. These grants are critical to supporting our law enforcement in the 911 operations, and we do get these each year, but they require new grant applications each year that are
are quite lengthy and comprehensive. So I just wanted to say thank you to Sergeant DeRuza, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barrett, and thank you to Sergeant DeRuza as well for that work. All right, Ms. Kent.
Order number 17, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $115,017.54 FY 22 911 Department Training Grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and the Security Office of Grants and Research. This grant funding will be used by the Beverly Police Department for 911 training courses and overtime cost coverage, as well as for training meeting space. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grants, earmarks, donation, or gifts to the city can be extended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by taking action on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's refer that to Finance and Property, please.
Order number 18, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $200,000 earmark from the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation. This earmark has been expended to the Parks and Recreation Department for construction and improvements to the many parks and recreation spaces in the City of Beverly. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be extended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this earmark at your upcoming meeting on Tuesday, January 18th. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. We'll refer that to Finance and Property as well, but I do want to note that Mr. Bruce Doig, our Director of Parks and Recreation, is here with us tonight. Thank you, Mr. Doig. Mr. Doig or Ms. Barrett, anything you'd like to say on this one?
Not really, no.
I'll just say two quick things. Thank you. I just wanted to point out that these two earmarks that are being received from the state are from the ARPA funds, the pocket of money that the state is receiving. And we did request those via forms last week, so we're looking forward to receiving contracts and getting those in process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barrett. Ms. Kent.
Order number 19, dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $200,000 earmark from the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. This earmark has been expended for improvements and enhancements to the McPherson Teen Center in the City of Beverly. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for the prescribed purpose. I therefore request the city approve this earmark at your upcoming meeting on Tuesday, January 18th. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Let's refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property. Let's go to communications from other city officers and boards, please.
Order number 20. From the city clerk, application for renewal for an amusement license for Beverly Salem Lodge of Elks, 39 Bow Street.
Thank you. Let's refer that to Legal Affairs, please.
Order number 21 from the city clerk's office. Application for renewal for Class 2 motor vehicle license for Barrio's Service Center.
Let's also refer that to Legal Affairs, please.
Order number 22 from the city clerk's office. Application for renewal for 2 taxi and livery licenses for American Limousine LLC, DBA Worldwide Chauffeur Transportation, 100 Cumming Center, and Tri-City Services, Inc. at 55 Rear Walnut Street in Peabody.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 23 from Council President Flowers, amendment of the Rules and Regulation Rule 10, Order of Business. Can I read your letter?
I do. I'm still flipping through Order 22, though.
I know, it's a little large.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Dear Honorable Council, as I alluded to during my remarks in our January 3rd, 2022 meeting, I am submitting for your consideration a proposal to amend the rules and orders of the City Council to allow for the Council to include in its regular meetings the reading of a land acknowledgement statement recognizing and honoring the Indigenous and Native peoples on whose ancestral land Beverly is built. This proposal specifically pertains to Rule 19 of the Council Rules and Orders, Order of Business. I propose to add the reading of the land acknowledgement after Agenda Item 2, Pledge of Allegiance to the Flag, and before current Agenda Item 3, Comments by Citizens. What follows this cover letter is the amended version of Rule 19 as proposed for your consideration, as well as the text of the land acknowledgement statement as I read it on January 3rd. As I said during our first meeting of this term, I believe that honoring the fullness of our history by lifting it up, examining it honestly, and honoring its many complexities, as well as honoring the people who were part of the story of this land and of this place from the beginning, is one of the best ways to learn together and to continue building the future we dream together. Pausing as we enter into our meeting to honor and respect the history of this land and the people who first called it home is part of that work. Again, I wish to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Kurt Steinberg, to Dean Joe Broderick, and to the entire leadership team at Montserrat College of Art who have done excellent work in this area and who shared with me their land acknowledgement statement that I might adapt it for our city purposes. An amendment to the rules and orders of the City Council requires a 2/3 vote for passage. I thank you in advance for your thoughtful consideration and discussion of this proposal. Sincerely, Julie R. Flowers, City Council President. And I do want to note, councilors, that Ms. Kent sent to you an updated version of Rule 19 as proposed. It turned out there were 2 versions of our rules and orders on the website, and so what I had transcribed was from our previous 2016 version, so we've got it cleaned up now, and what you have from Ms. Kent is the correct language. You also do have attached the land acknowledgement statement as read for your ease of referencing that. And I did just want to read into the record a letter that was received by the clerk's office to go along with this from Mr. Abu Tappan, who's our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Director. And so I read this into the record as it just came in. Dear Honorable Council, I write this letter to provide my full support to Council President Julie Flowers' proposal to amend the rules and orders of the City Council to allow for the reading of a land acknowledgement statement to honor the indigenous and native peoples on whose ancestral land Beverly is built. As we continue to examine diversity, equity, and inclusion here in our great city, we must do so with an eye on intentionality and to take these initial steps to correct practices of the past. Much of our American history has been truncated or contains many omissions of acknowledgement of countless Black, Indigenous, people of color. Much of this history has intentionally been truncated or omitted from what we all learned as we matriculated through our primary school years. You cannot protest or have an outcry for something you know nothing about. Much like the intentional systems of oppression that were built to discriminate against and exclude groups of people, we have allowed or have given a pass to keeping certain truths under wraps. Therefore, we must now be intentional in our actions and decision-making going forward. We must make a conscious effort to act with courageous intent. If not now, when? When is the right time to dig deep into our past and bring forth the acknowledgments that have been omitted for so long? I recently shared a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with our city staff. Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. Council President Flowers' proposal to include this land acknowledgement is a first step. Respectfully submitted, Abu Tappan, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Director. And Ms. Kent will refer Order 23 to the Committee on Legal Affairs. And I do want to note, councilors, that Rule 30 of the Rules and Orders, in addition to prescribing a 2/3 vote for amending the Rules and Orders, also dictates that any proposed amendment to the Rules and Orders can't be acted on until the meeting following its submission. So that will go to Legal Affairs tonight, but Councilor Rotundo will not be doing anything with it yet. Thank you. Ms. Kent?
Order number 24, a letter from Councilor Husband regarding the Financial Forecast Committee.
Let's refer that to Finance and Property, please.
Order number 28 is from Councilor Husband for the Financial Forecast FY 2022 to FY 2026 report.
Thank you. Let's refer that to Finance and Property. With that, I would entertain a motion to take a break for some committee. Never mind. Oh, sorry. Communications, applications, and petitions.
Order number 25, Endicott College Campus Projects Update.
I would entertain a motion to receive that and place on file.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It's approved 7-0.
Order number 26, the Ward 2 Civic Association from its National Grid's Beverly Regional Transmission Reliability Project.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to also receive that and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's approved. And I do want to just note, thank you to Ward 2 Civic Association President Tiffany Collins, who took the time to write to us and offer the association's thoughts about the upcoming National Grid project. Now, thank you, Ms. Kent. Now I would entertain a motion to take a break for some committee work. All in favor? Aye. Yes. All right, so we'll have legal affairs will be in committee room A, finance and property. Counselor Hussman, you'll stay here. And public services, Counselor Feldman, you get to conduct it on the bench. I get a bench. Thank you. Right, so Scott, you will be on air.
Okay.
Making sure that he's,
Nothing new.
this one will be live. We're live now, Kim?
You have to confirm the microphone, Jerry.
You're on now.
Yeah, so I guess what I would suggest is...
Out of order?
Oh, yes, call to order subcommittee on finance and property, and we don't have to worry about the committee of the whole at the moment. So what I'd like to do first, I think, is start with the financial forecasting report so Mr. Perry, I'm going to just invite you to sort of talk a little bit about it. And as a preface to his comments, I'd refer you to my letter, which does talk about why I wanted an extended term as chair, because there are some real nitty-gritty structural questions around the work of that committee that I think needs to be addressed, and I'm going to take a stab at trying to resolve some of the issues that the committee has had for a number of years over what is its mission, what is its purpose, what work should be included, what work should not be included, what information, under whose authority does the chair act, you name it, it's all over the board. And a lot of it, in my opinion, comes from the fact that the committee is made up of municipal finance professionals on one hand, and lay people who know nothing about, or I shouldn't say nothing, but know very little about municipal finance on the other. And trying to have a conversation on a substantive matter like a financial forecast for a $140 million budget with those two groups of folks, which is what the ordinance presently provides is supposed to happen, I think is a structural defect. And I have some ideas about how maybe that could be approached, but it's going to take some work to do so. So as chair, it's going to be much easier for me to sort of read through and convene meetings to talk about that. And I think that both you and my colleagues on this committee, we'd be well served to attend at least some of those meetings as well. The committee members will be invited as well. So there'll be some robust discussions around that. But what I'd like to do is two things. One is try to come up with some basic ideas with Mr. Perry's help and with the finance director's help about how a future committee structure might look like, and then use that as a structure for a conversation with the council and the committee members. I would also expect that there won't be complete agreement if the committee proceedings are any indication, but I think we need to get some greater clarity, and ultimately the council should make a decision on whether to keep the current structure or whether to make some of the changes that I'm going to try to recommend as a way to sort of unsnarl what has been a kind of fraught committee and its work. So with that, I'll turn it to Mr. Perry, who can actually talk about the substance of the report that was approved by the committee and filed with the council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam President.
Good to see you.
Good to see you all. I didn't get a chance to say hello to everybody, but it's nice to be here on a cold January night, right? In any event, with regard to financial forecasting, some general comments. This is the fifth one I've been involved with the city of Beverly, and even going back to my prior life before I retired from full-time work, I did a lot of training and teaching on financial forecasting throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In terms of this report here, and then I'd like to address for a minute or so some of Scott's commentary, because I think they're pretty important. I kind of echo some of the things he actually said. The city ordinances require the city to have a financial forecast done on or before the end of the calendar year. We came pretty close this year. We had a problem with our finance director, got hit with a hockey puck, and was out with a concussion, so we got a little delayed there. But we pretty much finished it up at the end of the calendar year. I think we get into the next week. It's been an interesting, in terms of financial forecasting as a bean counter, this is important stuff. To the average person, it probably isn't. And quite frankly, what it's telling you, and don't get lost in, some people are getting lost in the weeds of this and not seeing the forest through the trees. This is telling you basically, we're in pretty good shape. We're gonna be okay for FY23. It indicates we have a little bit over a $380,000 deficit gap, but that's normal financial forecasting. If in general, from my experience over the last 40 years of doing this stuff, and we will close the gap. Why will we close the gap? This is some of the challenges that Chairman Hausman has seen on this committee. I brought to their attention the Government Finance Officers Association, or known as GFOA, has two methodologies that they recommend. One is a conservative approach, and the other is what they call the objective approach. The conservative approach basically tries to look at the revenues in such a manner and doesn't overinflate them. He tries to keep them down. I'm sorry about that.
I think he hit it with his arm.
That was me. I hit the thing. I married an Italian girl, so I can't help myself here. In any event, so there's that conservative approach, and then there's what they call the objective approach, which is kind of closer to the real world here. I have always recommended, even before I got to Beverly, that municipalities should take a conservative approach because it reduces fiduciary risk. The ability to not get yourself into financial trouble is the right approach, in my opinion. I will be advocating for this, whether this committee does it or not. As Councilor Hausman can tell you, there was concern. I didn't know how this committee was going to vote on this stuff. Had they gone another direction, I may have written a letter as your independent budget and management analyst, indicating my concern about the numbers. But I will tell you this, on a 6-3 vote, the committee voted for this. I support it wholeheartedly. I am only an ex officio member. I'm not a voting member, but I can tell you the finance director voted for this. I support this, and even the school business manager voted in favor of this. So the bean counter's got it, and I'm comfortable with this. This budget, this report is something that the mayor will work off of starting in February, March, and April for the budget stuff. And we'll begin, I believe it's this week. I was asking Councilor Sweeney, I believe the governor is going to come out with his House 1 budget. I think it's this week. And I always report to you guys on that, and you'll see that. So it's the beginning of the revenue side. Bottom line, it's a good report. I like it. I can assure you 25 to 28 years ago, the city of Beverly would have given their soul to have this report because they would have known a lot more. And I think what's happened here, we've taken a little bit for granted as a community. We're in good shape financially. I've been saying that all along. This echoes that, and you should take comfort in these numbers, and I'm really comfortable. I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, that your committee and the council as a whole, accept it and place it on file as you traditionally do, and for your edification. In terms of some of the comments that Mr. Hausman made, Councilor Hausman made, this is an anomaly from my experience, having 9 people on a committee this large. My instincts tell me when they put this together years ago, when the city had troubles, they wanted enough people to be involved in this and look at this. They didn't want to hide it. But I am not aware of any other community that does anything like this on a committee of this size. And as Councilor Houseman indicated, he's 100% correct. It's been challenging when you have certain members of the committee who have absolutely little to no municipal financial experience, and then you have the bean counters, and I think Scott will probably agree that we spend probably 80 to 90% of our time answering technical questions as opposed to doing forecasting, which is really what the job should be, to do financial forecasting. So we do very little of that. So the bottom line to it is, in my view, based on watching this for the last 5 years, it's my understanding there may be some consideration this year to reviewing city ordinances, and I'm more than happy to share at the appropriate time my thoughts. Maybe a newly constituted committee is something that should be considered. I would recommend it be considered. I just don't think that this is conducive to the work. It makes it complicated, and that's something among a host of other things I know Council Houseman's considering for this committee. Bottom line to it, good report in my view, has my total support in it. I recommend you you file it as you normally would, and I would recommend to you and your colleagues that you use these numbers as part of your deliberations as moving forward on the city budget for FY23. With that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, so I guess Chairman Houseman and Perry, strikes me, my understanding of this committee, that to your point, it was established at a time when the city was dealing with some difficult financial pressures. One of the solutions was creating a financial forecast committee. I wonder, I guess in your experience, is this something every community has in place?
No. What traditionally happens from my experience, in fairness, not all the communities do forecasting. Those are the ones we used to, in my DOR days, kind of beat them up a little bit, if you will, to try to get them to do that. But the majority of the well-run communities certainly do financial forecasting. Traditionally, it's done by financial officials. I'm not aware of anyone that really does it in a committee environment. I'm not saying it isn't out there, but I'm not aware of one. And I know in most of the communities I dealt with, usually it's like the finance director does it, and they'll report it to like a board of selectmen, or a finance director will, through the mayor, will come to a city council and do that in that kind of case. There could be committees out there like that. I'm certainly have never heard one with 9 of them, but I'm not aware of any, but they could be out there. I don't know.
And I guess just to follow up on that, I mean, practicality, the way our budget is run, mayor and the finance director present a budget to a council, we either approve or amend to cut it. But I guess in practicality, I guess if the mayor and the finance director disagree with this financial forecast, they can do their own financial step up on the bench or whatever budget. Is there a practical use? I guess that's a question, and I guess Councilor Houseman's point about reviewing this, I mean, I would be interested in going back and saying, what is the mission of this group in practicality? What is the purpose of the outcome of this report?
My strong recommendation, Councilor, is that we continue doing a financial forecast. Absolutely. There's something we have to do. The process by doing that, I think, is something we should discuss. The finance director could easily do this. I can do this. I mean, it's not that it's somewhat complicated, but it can be done. I think it's the process, and it gets bogged down with people, whether they have different viewpoints, or they struggle with the understanding. I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure Council House would tell you, I have tried to explain what the undesignated fund balance is in this committee, and people still struggle with it. And no matter how often I try, at some point, either I'm failing or something here. But the bottom line to it, it is important. I have to, we should do this. And I will urge the city to do it. Maybe we talk about how we get to doing it in the future.
Call to order the committee of the whole. Sorry, go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, I guess I lost my train of thought trying to keep track of who was in and out of the room and so forth. But I think that it is a valuable process. But one of the committee members' words stick with me very well, which is, listen, if all we're doing is listening to the finance professionals tell us what they think, then why are we here? Are we just here to listen to them talk? Like, why are we here if we're not really going to be making any kind of substantive change or input into the forecast? And in fairness, sometimes the lay people ask good questions that elicit or provide information that the financial professionals didn't know. But I would say that's And I don't know if I would go so far to say rare, but that's pretty unusual that they really make an impact like that on what's being said. One example this year was Paul Manzo, who was a liaison with the Essex Tech and Aggie, brought up information that neither Mr. Perry nor Mr. Ailes knew about that really had a material impact on some numbers. So they went back and redid the spreadsheets. But that's very unusual. So I'm not saying that there's no role or no value at all, but clearly what we've had is not working. I would just, in summary, leave it that simple at this point.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning Mr. Manzo too, because that was the first time in years somebody made a material impact on the budget. It went from a positive number to a negative number for that one issue.
Yeah, Councilor Flowers, or President Flowers, I'm not sure.
I'm not
Which
sure
you are.
Thank you. I'm just excited I'm allowed to talk in this, right? So I'm just thinking about all of this conversation. Obviously, we're not going to decide this tonight. This seems like it's more informational.
Yes.
But I just wanted us to, I hope, not lose track. I think there's sort of two ways that I'm hearing sort of talking about what the input of non-financial professionals might be. And so I just want us to not lose track that there's sort of the technical input that people with training have, which doesn't make, I want us to be really careful, but I don't think it makes of no value when lay people ask questions or offer information. And I guess I would just say I think we're thinking about it in two different ways. So I'm hearing like the substantive input materially changed the numbers, but I guess I would say substantive input, in my view, is also lay people asking questions that help us do a better job talking to our residents, our constituents, because I think there has to be a way for us as a city to tell the narrative of what we're doing in a way that taxpayers can understand. And so I think we're sort of talking on two different levels, but I just want us to make sure, in my view, I think that's one of the strengths of bringing other voices into the conversation is sometimes questions that get asked in any of our jobs, whatever we're all trained to do, people who don't do that job, when they ask us the question, it helps us understand how we need to communicate better to people who don't know. Like with National Grid saying you can't use insider language, we don't speak that language. So I think there's value in that. So I just want us to not lose track.
Yeah, so I would completely agree with you. The question is, how do you define what that role is? Because what we found is that the lay people will get in my observations, get frustrated with the finance professionals the finance professionals don't change their point of view on how municipal finance works, or maybe that's not quite exactly the right way to put it, but you really sort of have two different roles, two different purposes for these two different groups. And the definition or the role for the finance professionals is clear. The role for the lay people is not clear. And over again, they've expressed their frustration, like, what is our role? Why are we here? And one thing that is really, really clear, that's really important to me, is this whole issue of transparency and communication that you raised to the general public. One of my agenda items for this year is to really work with the administration, advocate to the administration that we need to have a better way to present on the city website a more clear picture of how our budgetary process works and what our budget is. Right now we have a line-by-line, munis budget. For the lay people, sometimes I felt like they were digging deep, many layers of the onions, but, they were seeing lots of trees, but not necessarily the forest. There'd be a lot of discussion about particular pieces of information, missing the fact that we're projecting a budget deficit, and that's what we really should be focusing on, not a lot of the sort of trees as opposed to the forest. So helping to clarify what that role is, and I don't pretend to have a final answer on that. That's what the process is going to be of discussion, right, with the committee members and with the council to try to figure out what an appropriate role will be so that they're not continually frustrated and there's more clarity around what information should be presented, guardrails, if you will, and sort of foundational lists maybe of certain documents that should always be provided, and some things that maybe should not be provided because they're not really relevant. So it's gonna be messy in the beginning to try to sort that out, but I think it's important to try at least, because what we have is just not working well. So your point to citizen participation, I completely agree. The question is, how do we help citizen participation be effective, satisfying, so they feel like they're really doing something worthwhile? Because right now, a lot of them are feeling very frustrated about it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this topic? If there isn't, what I'm going to do is, I asked Mr. Perry, I think in the past what we've always done is received and placed the report on order, on hold, excuse me.
On file?
On file, I misspoke.
On some word.
Yeah, on something. And what I'd like to do is hold this in committee so that when whatever is produced out of this process I'm describing comes back, we will have the report available to the council to look at. That's at least one way of doing it. I mean, if we put it in receive and place on pile, we can still sort of pull it out, but I'd like to keep it as, if you will, an active document until there's actually some resolution on this other piece of work that I'm talking about, so that you can sort of look at the spreadsheet, look at the report, and then also compare it to what's being suggested.
Are you looking for a motion to hold?
Well, I can hold it all by myself in committee as chair, but Mr. Perry, you seem to have a different point of view.
Policy belongs to you three and your colleagues as well.
Well,
I just heard for the first time that I wasn't aware, I was told tonight, you may be proceeding on additional meetings, which is your prerogative. And I can only tell you, as a bean counter, I guess, we're already having conversations about the FY23 budget, and while I appreciate the process with your colleagues on the Financial Forecast Committee, we're moving forward.
Yeah, no, I'm not pardon for interrupting. I'm not suggesting we change the report or the spreadsheets that have been filed.
I mean,
one iota. Only that additional work of a different nature will be done.
Yeah. My recommendation to you as your budget analyst is to receive it and place it in file and continue the process, whatever you deem appropriate. It doesn't mean it doesn't change anything really. That would be my recommendation to you, but of course it's your decision how you want to proceed.
Yeah. I don't know, Councilor Flowers, do you have
No, but Councilor St. Hilaire had his hand up.
Just some follow-up to that. I think the report was due in December.
Yeah.
It's coming to us in January. We've got a budget coming up. My point of view, it was voted on by the committee, it was approved. I think we should accept it as a council. And, obviously, I encourage you to continue the work that you're doing on the purpose and makeup and mission of the group. But I would prefer that we accept it, move on.
That's fine.
Do your work. And,
I don't have a problem with that.
That would be my.
I don't have a problem with that. Councilor Flowers, you have any? Okay.
I'm fine with that.
So I would accept a motion by this subcommittee to receive and place the financial forecasting report on file, and then we'll send it back to the full council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
That's order 28,
3-0.
right, that you're talking?
Yes. Yep. So as we gain practice doing this in person, because we've always done these remote, what do you want me to be making notations
So-
on?
You don't have to do anything, I'm gonna do it.
Oh, okay, you've got the sheet over there.
I
Okay.
have a sheet.
Oh, okay, fine. All right, good. All right. In that case, we will, I'm going to take up order number 15, which is the $20,939 grant for the firefighter safety equipment. Is there any discussion? If not, I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 3-0. Order number 16 will take up is a grant of $163,964 to be used by the Beverly Police Department to assist public safety dispatch services on their enhancing their 911 service. Unless there's any discussion, I accept a motion to accept the grant.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion, order number 16 carries 3-0. Order number 17 is a grant of $115,017 in change, also related to 911 training courses and overtime costs for training for the overtime cost coverage, as well as training for meeting space with the police department. Unless there's any questions, I'd accept a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. That's order number 17. Order number 18 is an earmark for $200,000 from the Department of Conservation and Recreation to be used by our Parks and Recreation Department. Unless there's any discussion or questions, I'd accept a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. That's order number 18. Order number 19 is an earmark in the amount of $200,000 to be used for improvements and enhancements to the McPherson Teen Center. Unless there's any questions, I'd accept a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Order number 19 passes 3-0. And I believe that's
Order
I
number
think we have to
24,
do your letter.
Order number 24.
You want to hold that one?
Yeah, let me hold my letter of explanation regarding the additional work that I'm doing.
Do you need a motion to
You want
vote?
to vote on it?
No, we don't need, it'll just be held in committee,
Okay.
all right? So I think that's it? Yep. Okay. Motion to adjourn committee of the whole?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn subcommittee on finance and property.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
All right. Call the city council back to order, please. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Ms. Kent, let's go to reports from committees, please.
Order 15, from the mayor, the grant for $20,939.99. Fire safety equipment from Mass Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to purchase structural turnout gear and new dryer for the Beverly Fire Department. Have considered said matter and begged leave to report as follows. Approve this grant.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, the question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. And thank you to former President Guanci for writing out that language for me. I brought my piece of paper. President Guanci, if you're watching, I came prepared.
Order number 16, to the Committee on Finance and Property and Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter regarding a grant for $163,964 FY22 911 support and incentive grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Office of Grants and Research to assist public safety dispatch services in providing 911 services. Have considered said matter and beg to leave as follows. Accept the grant 3-0.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or discussion? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Order number 17, to the Committee on Finance and Property and Committee of the Whole, to whom refer the matter regarding a grant for $115,017.54 FY 2022 911 Department Training Grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Office of Grants and Research, to be used by the Beverly Police Department for 911 training and overtime cost coverage as well as training meeting space. Have considered said matter and beg to leave report as follows. Recommend to accept the grant.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Order number 18, the Committee on Finance and Property and Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter regarding an earmark for $200,000 from the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation to be expended to the Parks and Recreation Department for construction to the many parks and recreation spaces in Beverly. Have considered said matter and beg to leave to follows and approve the grant, earmark, sorry.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, the question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Order number 19, the Committee on Finance and Property and Committee of the Whole, to whom we referred the matter regarding the earmark for $200,000 from the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development to be expended for improvements and enhancements to the McPherson Teen Center. Have considered said matter and beg to leave as follows. Accept the earmark.
Any further discussion or questions? Councillor Bowen.
Just a brief comment that this flagged for me, I know there's been an ongoing discussion about youth services in the city, and I wonder with this funding secured and work moving forward, if it might be a good time to invite the YMCA team and city staff to just talk about a little bit more of their updated vision, because I think the last check-in was 6 months or so ago and without this funding secured. So exciting that it's coming in, and it just triggered for me, it might be a good time to have that conversation again.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen, I think we must be on the same wavelength as Ms. Kent and I. We just were talking about bringing some of our nonprofit partners in, so that's a great reminder. And the Y was one of our partners that we wanted to bring in for an update, so thank you very much. Councillor Houseman.
Two things. One is a question for Mr. Perry. Mr. Perry, are the earmarks that are going to the Parks and Recreation Department, do those go into the enterprise fund, or do those go through the general budget?
No, grants are a separate account item outside of the general fund and outside of the enterprise funds, because they're almost like they're encumbered for the grant requirements. So it's a separate line item, and it'll be earmarked for the requirements of the grant.
Okay. And sort of related to what Councillor Bowen was saying, on the ARPA money that's coming in, do you know if the city has hired its ARPA manager?
Yes.
And
yes, I've met her, yes.
And I'd be interested in having the mayor and his staff and the manager both meet the manager, but also have some kind of report about where things stand on the mayor's decisions around those funds. I know this is not your wheelhouse directly, but the mayor promised to keep in close communication with us on how those funds will be spent, and so far, at least, unless I've missed something, we don't really know, other than maybe piecemeal pieces like this coming to us, and I'd like to have a much better sense of that.
Let me, that's a great question, Council. I'm glad you brought it up, actually. So a couple of things. First off, I've had the opportunity, I think, as the newer councilors know, to give a orientation. And when I got into with Councilor Sweeney, time got lost in everything we're talking about, and I'm going to corral him. For those of you who may not be aware of it, he's kind of coordinates the Commonwealth of Massachusetts opera program, so we couldn't be any lucky to have somebody on board who knows this far better than I do. And I can assure you I'll be picking his brain going forward. The second thing is, I understand that the opera requirements at the municipal level require quarterly reporting to appropriate officials. I've already met with our new opera official, who's a very nice woman, who gave me some time already, and my intention is to she promised me I will be getting those quarterly reports. I will be reviewing them, and then I will report to all of you my findings and what they're doing, so that you're in the loop in terms of what they're doing. And I don't think it's a bad idea, maybe a couple times a year, for the council, Madam Council President, to maybe invite the mayor and them in to talk about it. But I assure you I'm going to monitor that, and it's my intention to make sure you're aware of everything that's going on, hopefully on a quarterly basis.
If I may, Council President, just a couple more questions on this subject from Mr. Perry.
Yes.
What's the total amount in round figures, the monies that come into the city on this? Is something like 12 million?
12.6 million.
So quarterly reports are great. I guess, I don't know what my colleagues think, but I'd like to have sort of an initial meeting and sort of broad discussion. I know that the mayor spoke with some of us, but not the new councilors, at least since they've been councilors, on sort of the big picture of how he views the process of deciding how these funds are spent. And I'd love to have the council invite him to come in and have that conversation with us now, rather than waiting for a quarterly report to come down the road. So, Council President, I defer to you the best way to go about doing that, but I'd encourage the council to make that request to the
I know that the mayor did, and you're right, we should be doing this more. The mayor, I think, had meetings over the end of the summer. I remember being with Madam President out on the picnic tables here.
Yep.
He gave some vision of what he wants, but it's a moving target, and to spend the entire 12.6 all at once, I think we all agree, is ludicrous. It needs to evolve, so that's why you're doing that. But I think your concept of trying to invite the new, just for the opportunity for everybody to meet, the new opera coordinator and the mayor's vision, I think it's an excellent idea, and I'm sure we can coordinate that through the finance director and the mayor's office. Great idea.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Ms. Kent, we can work on that, getting that invitation out, so thank you.
Great, thank you.
And thank you, I should have acknowledged that you were here before Mr. Perry when I acknowledged everyone else. Mr. Perry, our budget analyst, is also here with us tonight, so thank you for being here, Mr. Perry.
If I may, Madam President, that does have a nice ring to it, by the way. I just want to say congratulations, looking forward to working with all of you. It's my first time I've addressed the new committee, and as I've told everybody, feel free to call me at any time and say anything I can do to assist you, by all means. I hope you're not as bad as Councilor Houseman, who has me on speed dial, but by all means, I'm more than happy to talk to you. I love teasing them. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. So this is Order 19. The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Order number 28, financial, from Counselor Houseman, the financial forecast 2022 to 2026, to whom will refer the Committee on Finance and Property, and approve this request. Replace it on file.
Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the, Counselor St. Hilaire.
Sorry, I just wanted to publicly commend our city finance director, Brian Ailes, our city budget analyst, Jerry Perry, as well as City Councilor Scott Houseman, who chaired the Financial Forecast Committee. For, I think they took a conservative and responsible approach to the budget and forecast. And from reading this report, and as evidenced by Councilor Houseman's letter, it was clear to me that the development of a financial forecast this year was a difficult process, and that there was some strong disagreement about the city's financial approach. And I just wanted to say, in my opinion, there's always going to be pressure to spend more and more taxpayer dollars and to spend down reserves. And, but I think taking a conservative approach is responsible fiscally, protects the interests of our taxpayers, and really puts us in a strong financial position. So I really want to thank you for your leadership, hard work on this report, and for standing up for Beverly's taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. The question comes on the, sorry that I almost went past you, Counselor St. Hilaire, not intentional. The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Order number 14 from the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding the reappointment of David Pacistelli and Pam Gogian to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Have considered said matter and leave to as follows. Recommend that they approve the reappointments.
The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Order number 20, the Committee on Legal Affairs and Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter regarding the application for renewal for an amusement license for the Beverly Salem Lodge of Elks, 39 Bow Street, have considered said matter and leave to report as follows. Recommend the license be granted. Councilor Husman, are you trying to raise your hand?
No.
Okay,
Okay. Any comments or discussion? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Order number 21, the Committee on Legal Affairs and Committee of the Whole, to whom we refer the matter regarding an application renewal for Class 2 motor vehicle license for Barrio's Service Center, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the license be granted.
Comments or discussion? Quit.
So just to clarify the name, it's DeBacco's. I know the application itself looks like the Barrios. It's DeBacco's on Rantoul Street, so that's just a clerical that needs
Oh,
to be
good to know.
fixed.
Scribal error. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo.
D-I-B-B-B-A-C-C I-O-S?
Nope, CCOS.
Okay.
No I. But there is a little
Bad handwriting.
apostrophe on
Yeah.
DeBacco's there,
Okay.
so.
Thank you,
I could
Councilor
see.
Rotundo. So this is for DeBacco's Service Center.
Yes.
So the question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Order number 22, the Committee on Legal Affairs and Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter regarding an application for renewal for 2 taxi livery licenses, American Limousine LLC, DBA Worldwide Chauffeur Transportation at 100 Cummings Center and Tri-City Services, Inc., and 55 Rear Walnut Street in Peabody, have considered said matter and beg to leave as follows. Recommend the license be granted.
Comments or discussion? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
14? Okay. Order number 11. The Committee on Public Service and Committee of the Whole, to whom we refer the matter regarding the reappointment for Catherine Keefe O'Hare as trustee of the Beverly Public Library, have considered said matter and beg leave as follows. Recommend that the council approve the reappointment.
Comments or discussion? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Order number 12, the Committee on Public Services and Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter regarding a reappointment for Wayne Miller and Sean Leach to the Cable TV Advisory Commission, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the reappointments were approved.
Comments or discussion? Question comes on the adoption of the proposal and the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Order number 13, the Committee on Public Services and Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter regarding a reappointment for Mr. Brian Ailes, Finance Director of City of Beverly, and Ms. Darlene Nguyen, Planning Director of the City of Beverly, to serve on the Beverly Affordable Housing Trust, have considered said matter and beg leave to follows. Recommend for the license to be, for the reappointments to be granted with the question of the effective term dates, because it was questioned about the year. So I will talk to the mayor's office and get that straight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Other comments or discussion? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
That's it for me.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Counselors, any last comments before we wrap up our first meeting here in Chambers from this term? Counselor Rotundo.
Well, thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to make a statement on Monday, January 24th, if anyone is watching BevCam right now. There is a vaccine clinic at Ryoside Civic Association from 2 to 6. Pre-registrations preferred, but they did do walk-ins today up at Apple Village, so I'm assuming they'll do the same. So just wanted to get that message out for those who need to get their booster shot or first or second shots. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Counselor Rotundo, and thanks for your work in getting those organized, too. Counselor Houseman.
Yeah, I'll just be brief, which is not something I'm known for. I just want to welcome all my colleagues to a new term, and say I really look forward to working with you over the next 2 years as we try to tackle the challenges that face the city and the state. Thank you very much.
You did it. Thank you.
That deserves a, yeah.
Standing on.
Oh, you got a standing ovation and everything. Counselors, any other? Well, I will just remind us and remind anyone watching on BevCam that our next regular city council meeting is on February 7th at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. And I do know that, I guess stay tuned on this, especially legal affairs. Councilor Rand is working on scheduling a legal affairs meeting for next week. Obviously, Councilor Rand is not here this evening, so we don't have that quite finalized. But also with that, I think it's a good reminder to all of us, whether it's our first term or we're returning, having just come off of a term where so many of us spent many meetings on Google Meet, which meant that a lot of our subcommittee work was just done on the floor, thanks to Rule 22, which we probably never want to read again, that we can start to hopefully lean back into this norm where the first and third Mondays have been our regular council meetings, but we often have, in the pre-COVID world, used the second and fourth Mondays for subcommittee work as needed. And so just getting ourselves maybe back in that pattern, if possible. Of course, if committee members need another night, that's always been flexibility, but we can sort of try to lean back into that norm. And do want to also remind ourselves that if we are scheduling subcommittee meetings doing that work, our clerk of committees, Ms. Dixon, is your point of contact. Again, being on Google Meet for so long and using Rule 22, we sort of got out of some of those good habits. And now we've got a new council and we're all back and we're back in person. It's a good time for us to just kind of reset, even for those of us who were here in a pre-COVID world. Yep. Feels like a long time ago.
It does.
And I also will just say thank you to all of my fellow counselors. I think this, we had our first meeting on the 3rd, but this is our first meeting here in the chambers. It was really a good start, I would say, a really good chance to have discussion together. Thank you to Ms. Kent and Ms. Dixon for all of your help. Thank you for catching me before I made mistakes. And thank you very much to Kim and BevCam and for the upgraded equipment. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 7-0. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Can we put on nameplates in the